Okay, I'm going to have a look at the first question here. This is the data that you've been given. You've got household size, which is our independent variable, that's x, and power used, that's our dependent variable, that's y. And we're asked a series of questions, parts A through E, that we have to answer for this first case. So I'm going to do these in order from A to E, but actually before I can get into answering any of those questions, there's a few things that, there's a few preliminary steps that we have to go through. This is going to be the same for any kind of regression question, any kind of Chapter 16 question that you're ever looking at, whether it's on an assignment or it's on an exam, or even if you're just practicing in your textbook. So let's go through what that's all about. Okay, so what am I talking about with preliminary work? Well, everything in Chapter 16, every kind of question you could be asked in Chapter 16 is going to be backed up by some sort of a formula. And your formulas, although you're going to have a lot of different formulas that you'll have access to, on the exam you'll have a cheat sheet with lots of formulas on it. When you're working on your own with a textbook, you've got all the formulas in the textbook. All of these formulas can be broken down into the following components. So let's have a look at these components. First of all, there is the covariance, and the covariance is written as Sxy, and it has a formula of 1 over n minus 1 times the sum of xy minus the sum of x in brackets times the sum of y over n. So that's the covariance. A lot of formulas use the covariance. Also, we have variances of x, which is a very similar formula. It's 1 over n minus 1, and then I've got the sum of x squared minus the sum of x in brackets squared over n. And I also have a variance of y. Same kind of deal. It's 1 over n minus 1. But now instead of having x's, I've got y. So it's the sum of y squared minus the sum of y in brackets over n. And then finally, I'm going to need to be able to work out my means. So there's the mean x, which is the sum of x over n, and the mean y, which is the sum of y over n. So these 5 quantities here, the covariance, my 2 variances, my 2 means, these 5 quantities are going to show up in all of the different formulas that we have in Chapter 16 for simple linear regression. So I've got to be able to work out these formulas first before I can answer part A, B, C, D, or E. And before I can look at getting these 5 formulas worked out, if you have a look closely at these formulas, you'll see that they're pretty much the same values over and over again, just in different combinations. So let me show you what I mean. Well, actually, let's do it right here so you can see it all together. In these formulas, I need to know the sum of x. I also need to know the sum of y. So both of these have to be dealt with before I can carry on. I need to know the sum of x squared. I need to know the sum of y squared. And I need to know the sum of x times y. And then finally, I need to know what n is. So if I can figure out what these sums are here, that's going to allow me to work out what all of these are, my covariance, my variances, and my means. And then we're going to be ready to answer all of the questions from part A to part E. So that's how I'm going to start off this question. So let's get to work on that. I'll make some, well, actually no. Let's look at these sums down here. Okay, so the sum of x, sum of y, sum of x squared, sum of y squared, and so on. I'm going to do that using Excel. Now, you're supposed to do this manually, so if you want to break out a calculator or just do it with pencil and paper, that's fine. But I'm going to do it with Excel just to save on time a little bit here. So I've got the data already entered in, and let's have a look at it here. You can see that my first column, I have my x values. In my second column, I have my y values. That's great. That's my given data. But what I really want is also to have my x squared and y squared values and also my xy values. Okay, so what I need to have is I need to have my x squared values in here. So let's do x squared. And the way that I'm going to do x squared, I'm just going to type in equals 2, and then I'll go over here and click on my first x value. So it shows me A2, that's column A, row 2. And if I then put in a little up arrow above the 6 on the keyboard, that means to the power of, and I'll put in 2, that gives me 3 squared. And the nice thing about this is if you see that little black dot in the corner, double click on that black dot. It finishes all of them. So there's all my x squared values. And then I want y squared. So let's have a look at doing the same thing. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to put in equals 2, click on my first y value, up arrow, squared. Big number, but that's typical for squared values. And then finally I need my x times y values because I need to have the sum of x, y. So this is going to be equals to my first x, and then I'm going to do times, and then my first y, hit equals, double click that, or click on that little black dot, and that fills in all my x, y values. Let's straighten these up a little bit. And at the bottom, I can put in my sums. So this is going to be equals to sum, and then open the brackets and highlight all of the values in this column. And then close the brackets, hit enter. That gives me my sum. And then I can, again, working with that little black dot in the bottom there, I can drag it over and I've got all of my sums. So just to make this clear, I'm going to put in here that this is the sum of x. This one is the sum of y. This one is the, this one is the sum of x, I'll just call it SQ, sum of x squared. This is sum of y, SQ, sum of y squared. And then this one is sum of x times y. So these are the values that I needed to have to get going with my formulas. So I'm going to make these a little bit easier to read by putting a comma in there. We don't need decimals. So those are the values that we're after to get going. So let's go back and work those into things here. Okay, so this is my 5 sums. I've got them up here. And I need to start off with my covariance. So let's work out the covariance. That's Sxy. And remember, this is 1 over n minus 1. And it's the sum of xy minus the sum of x times the sum of y over n. So let's fill some of this stuff in. Now, how many data points do I have? What is n, in other words? N is, n is 10. I have 10 observations, 10 pairs of data, so this is 1 over n minus 1, or 1 over 10 minus 1. My sum of xy is 60,709. My sum of x is 55. I'm going to multiply that by my sum of y, which is 9538. And this is over n, not n minus 1, so that's over 10. So a little calculator work, and we'll see what this gives us. Okay, so I get 916.6667. I'm going to go to 4 decimal places. I think that that's the best idea for you. 4 decimal places is usually pretty safe. So that's my covariance. Now I'm going to use this same space to keep track of all of my different values. So I'm going to put my covariance over here on the side. So 916.6667. So that's the first value dealt with. The next value that I need to deal with is my variance of x. So let's have a look at getting rid of what we've got here already and making some space. Okay, so my variance of x has the formula 1 over n minus 1. and it's the sum of x squared minus the sum of x in brackets squared over n. And we know that this is 1 over 10 minus 1. And the sum of x squared, what have we got up there? It says it's 377. The sum of x in brackets is 55. We'll square that, put it over n, which is 10. And then a little calculator work, and we'll get this one worked out. So I get 8.2778. Okay, so let's keep track off to the side. That's 8.2778. And next up is the variance of y. So same idea. I'll clear some space, and we'll work out the variance of y. Okay, so variance of y is 1 over n minus 1, sum of y squared minus the sum of y in brackets squared over n. This is 1 over 10 minus 1. And then the sum of y squared is a huge number. We're in the millions. 10,091,474. And this is minus the sum of y, 9538. Square that, put it over 10, close the brackets, calculator work, and we'll get this one figured out. Okay, so it's still a very big number, 110,458.8444. So, not really going to have enough room over there for it. Let's redo this a little bit. .8444. Okay, and then finally we have to work out the sum of x, the mean of x and the mean of y. So those are going to be pretty simple. Okay, so the mean of x is just the sum of x over n. The sum of x is 55, n is 10. Usually they only have 10 observations in these questions. It makes the math a lot easier for you to work out and for them to mark. So I have an average x of 5.5. The mean y is sum of y over n, so that's going to be 9538 over 10, and this ends up being 953.8. 953.8. Okay, so there you go. We've got all of the basic values needed, all the basic statistics that are at the heart of all of the formulas that I'm going to need to answer parts A through E. So I hope you'll check out my videos on answering parts A through E for the first question. And I'm also going to put up something to get you started with the second question. Probably have that tomorrow. Thanks.